So what did we learn from Michigan's spring game? Let's get into it. So Michigan is coming off of a college football playoff appearance, and they are bringing back, in my opinion, the most talent out of any of the other top 5 teams from last year's AP poll. To me, Michigan has the second best chance of winning the national title after Georgia. Georgia's gonna have to stay #1 until they prove it otherwise. And so this was the first look at the upcoming Michigan Wolverines team that we're expected to be seeing, and it's kind of a mixed bag. So first and foremost, the #1 thing that I have to point out, the #1 thing that I believe that every Michigan fan and everybody who watched this spring game should have learned is that Michigan's defense is fast and they are scary. Now, normally with football, you know, it takes the offense a little bit longer to, you know, get their timing, get their mesh going, but Michigan's defense was absolutely flying around, blowing everything up. Their D-line and linebackers in particular, Michigan is going to have a very, very excellent linebacker and D-line core. I mean, you guys are seeing some of the plays that they're making right now. They were flying around the field, making tackles, blowing plays up. But the #1 thing that I was seeing is that they were just playing fast. It wasn't like they were letting the plays come to them. They were going and making the tackles for loss, immediately closing on receivers. Overall, Michigan did such a phenomenal job on the defensive side of the ball of setting a tempo, of constantly putting pressure on the quarterback, constantly collapsing the pocket, and just making it overall very tough for both Michigan's offense to get their running game going and their passing game going. The second thing that I believe that we all should have learned is that Michigan is going to continue heavily relying on that running game. Last year, Michigan had one of the best rushing offenses in all of college football, and with them bringing back their 2 star-studded running backs in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, they're going to be more than dominant. I think they're going to be even better than they were last year. I honestly believe that Blake Corum is a top 3 running back regardless of class, and Donovan Edwards is going to be a day 1 or potentially day 2 RB as well. And the last overall point that I want to touch on before we get a little bit more in detail of what we saw during this game is that Michigan does not have a backup quarterback. Michigan is going to live and die by JJ McCarthy's play. If he is not able to get onto the field, if he gets hurt in any way, shape, or form, I did not see anything from the 3 other Michigan quarterbacks that saw playing time that shows that they are ready for true starting time. I mean, don't get me wrong, Michigan's defense is fast and they're scary, but none of the guys really stepped up to show that they had that elite backup talent. I mean, Jack Tuttle was getting the first reps for the second team, and overall, he looks like a good mix of a running quarterback who can also pass it a little bit, but he does get a little bit antsy, and he does like to run a lot more than I believe that he should. I think that he takes a lot of shots that would end up getting him hurt overall. And Alex Orji, he gives you the most flair. I think that if JJ was to go down, that Alex would probably be your best bet just because he gives you that dynamic speed. He has the strong arm. Now, can he put it all together consistently? I don't think so. But I do think that out of the 3 backup quarterbacks that we saw, Jack Tuttle and Alex Orji are going to be your best options. But JJ McCarthy is still light years better than them. So Michigan, to me, they don't have a backup. All right, now let's get into the real details of what we learned from this Michigan game. First and foremost, Michigan overall on offense. On defense looked great, but on offense looked very, very rusty. I mean, on the first drive, JJ McCarthy threw an absolute duck. Now, the commentator said that his elbow got hit. I personally did not see his elbow get hit. It looked like the ball just sailed on him, and that ended up being a pick on the offense on that first drive. It's not what you like to see. We'll get to his throws later on because he more than cleaned it up later on. But overall, Michigan, it just took them a little while to get that offense going. You would like to see their running game be a little bit more consistent. They were getting decent penetration on some of the drives, but overall, Michigan's defensive line was continuing to win, continuing to close the gap to close the pocket on the quarterback, and just making it overall extremely hard for Michigan's offense to get going. Now, one caveat on what I'm about to say, I know that they're not going to have JJ McCarthy out there running like it's real live scrimmage because he's your starting quarterback. You're not supposed to get anywhere near him during this game, so I understand that you're not going to be seeing him running a whole lot of RPOs with an option opinion on it, but the way that they were using Jack Tuttle with that consistent, every time he hands off, he's sprinting to the edge. I believe that that is exactly what JJ McCarthy and that Michigan offense need to do this upcoming season. They need to establish JJ as a consistent running threat on each and every single play. I believe that if Michigan is able to absolutely perfect that RPO system while mixing in play actions here and there, is going to allow them to open up that offense a little bit more. Really, when we were seeing Michigan, it was run to just set up a long third down if the runs weren't working. Michigan wasn't using the pass to help set up the run. They were using the run to consistently help set up the pass, which is okay, but you can't always rely upon that. It's kind of like how my team USC has been, where they set up, they pass, and then they get into these downs where it's like, oh, these are obvious passing downs. I feel like that's the same thing with Michigan. They were trying to run it, and then they get into these obvious passing downs where it's like, it just limits your playbook so much. Michigan should start trying to throw it on first down more, throw it on second down more, mixing in some options, mixing in some speed options to the outside. JJ is a good enough athlete to be able to run the true option with Michigan. I'm not saying that they need to structure their whole offense around the option, but having an RPO where Jack Tuttle, as you can see on the play next to me, hands it off, and then when he's sprinting to that edge, it forces that outside linebacker or that edge rusher to hold. It forces them to hold for just long enough to be able to, he's going to either crash down and try and get the running back, and then that's when you pull it and you sprint to the outside, or he's going to stay there and then you hand it off, and then your running back has one less guy that he has to worry about getting through the line with. Like I said, they weren't going to be running JJ a whole lot in this game. They want to keep him healthy for the upcoming season, but I do believe the way that they were using Jack Tuttle is exactly the way that they need to be using JJ this upcoming season. Maybe a little bit less runs. Jack was taking a lot of punishment that I think he shouldn't have had to take during a spring game, but I do think that JJ should be a little bit more of a running threat. With just how many eyes are going to be on Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, I do believe that JJ can also have a 500 to 600 yard rushing season with just how solid Michigan's offensive line is going to be as they continue to get better, as well as when defenses don't know who you're going to be giving the ball off to, it just opens up your offense a lot more, because they're going to need to keep more and more players in the box, and then all of a sudden JJ's going to let that cannon fly, and you're going to be having Darius Clemens running 40 yards down the field and being wide open for a touchdown. Even though, yes, his first series was very, very rough. Overall, I mean, he threw a pick on the first series, and I believe it was either the second or third series with the Maze squad that they ended up fumbling it. Overall, just a very, very, very rusty first half. But on the final drive before halftime, JJ McCarthy went out there and put on an absolute masterclass. He was zipping the ball all over the field, particularly to one person. Yo, Peyton O'Leary is going to be a weapon for y'all. I know that y'all have a couple of other guys that weren't playing in this game that are going to be weapons for you on the outsides. Peyton O'Leary was giving Michigan's defensive secondary fits all game. Yo, Peyton O'Leary's new nickname is 7-Eleven. Why? Because that dude was always open. He was cooking. Peyton O'Leary by far was the standout player of this game. He was all over the field, making great catches. Every single time that he caught the ball, he was moving the sticks. Peyton O'Leary should be a guy that you are heavily reliant upon, and you can put him both in the slot and on the outside, and I think he's going to be a great asset for Michigan's receiver room. But I mean, you'll see next to me a couple of these throws that JJ was making. His arm is strong. He's showing that he can roll away from his throwing arm and still deliver great passes. He has a great zip on the ball. Obviously, I'm just gonna give that first play up to, it's a little bit of nerves. It's your first time playing in front of a lot of people. I mean, it's not his first time, but first time of the season, one of them gets away from you. But after that, JJ was locked and loaded, and he made nothing but beautiful throw after throw, especially going into the half before they ended up retiring him. JJ McCarthy showed that he is by far and away Michigan's best choice at quarterback, and that he is going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So overall, to wrap up my summary on Michigan's offense, I believe that a little bit rusty, a couple of mistakes, a couple of turnovers, It's to be expected. It's spring football, you know? You're not expecting them to look like mid-season form, but overall, I did like what I saw from JJ McCarthy and that offense going into the half. I believe that if they're able to mix in a little bit more running with JJ, obviously getting Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards in that backfield is going to change up that overall running game, and then bringing in those wide receiver ones with the addition of Peyton O'Leary and Darius Clemens, I think that overall, Michigan is going to be a very scary team to deal with on the offensive side of the ball. It's just going to be interesting to see how they put it all together, but you are going to have to stop Michigan's run game if you want to even think about beating them. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, Michigan is going to be a very, very scary team on that defensive side of the ball. And two players that I want to just spotlight right now are going to be Jalen Harrell and Derek Moore. They both had themselves a phenomenal game. I mean, just look at these back-to-back series for Jalen Harrell, absolutely flying into the backfield, causing a havoc, blowing plays up, and then Derek Moore did the same exact thing in back-to-back plays. Derek Moore had the play of the game, in my opinion. Look at him absolutely manhandle that tackle and just throw him away and get into the backfield like it was nothing. Both of those guys are going to be big play potential. Like I said, Michigan's defensive line and their offensive line are just going to be absolute nightmares to deal with. I meant to say defensive line and linebackers. Cam Good is also going to be a weapon. Between Derek Moore and Cam Good, those two guys are going to be staples on that defensive line, and they're going to be getting into the backfield very quickly. Overall, Michigan's defense actually looked closer to mid-season form. They were flying around, they were looking fast, they were hitting hard, they were finishing through plays. They were making it very, very tough for Michigan's offense to really get anything established. They started to, you know, find a rhythm, especially with Peyton O'Leary getting hot. Michigan's secondary is going to need to be able to stop guys like that. That just is what it is. Peyton O'Leary should not be torching them for like $150 and a tug. Like, he was going out there just making it look effortless. But overall, I do believe that between their defensive line and their linebackers are going to cause more than enough pressure on the quarterback to have him throw up a couple of ducks like we saw, and then the secondary is going to be making the most of it. I do believe that they're going to need a little bit more, just get a little bit tighter in the secondary, but overall, I really love what I saw from Michigan's defense. They looked very fast, they looked ferocious, they're playing through everything, and Michigan to me, like I said, name another team that has the better chance of, there's only one team in my opinion, that's Georgia. And even Georgia has to replace their quarterback this upcoming season. Alabama's having to replace their quarterback. Ohio State's having to replace their quarterback. Clemson's having to replace their quarterback. Like, all of the other top teams in the country are having to replace their quarterback. Michigan doesn't. Michigan is keeping their quarterback. They're keeping their best offensive players. I believe they're losing one of their best defensive players in this year's draft, but they have more than enough talent that's replacing it. Overall, Michigan is in very good hands, and do not be surprised to see Michigan back into the college football playoffs. Michigan overall, my Michigan fans, was a little bit rusty, but I'll be very excited for this upcoming season after taking a look at that spring game. But I want it from y'all, what did y'all think of the Michigan Wolverines spring game? I need to hear of y'all comments. What did y'all think of JJ McCarthy? What did y'all think of the defense? Do you guys think that your offense, just how it took a little while to get going, do you think that's more of a factor of not having your star players in there? You know, it's still a little bit early. Or do you think that that is a real point that has to be fixed and could be a concern going into the season? I need to hear all your guys' comments down below. Be sure to leave this video a like and hit that subscribe button. We're going to be covering all of the major spring games, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications so you don't miss when we cover your favorite school. I love and appreciate all y'all, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Ciao.